What's up, everybody? Radiant Reflections. We are joined with a very special guest. Tell him your name, sir.
My name is Jared Ballenger.
Jared Ballenger.
Ballenger.
I like that.
Ballenger.
Sounds like a spy's name or something, right?
He could totally be a spy.
I could be.
The name's Ballenger.
I can't talk about that, though.
Ballenger.
Can't talk about it.
Can't talk about that.
But Jared is with us from Destiny Rescue, and we're going to talk a lot more about this ministry, this organization. But first, what number is this, Josh? You're the only one who knows.
Okay, so hang on. Could you hand me that right there, Jared? That invisible...
The fidget spinner.
No, the invisible piece of humble pie.
Okay. You don't know.
I don't remember. After Kinsey last week, totally probably was like, dude, that's so amazing. You can remember all the episode numbers. I'm sitting here this morning, I'm like,
He jinxed you.
is it 57 or is it 58? I'm totally
I'm pretty sure it's 58
okay.
of season 3 of
so-
Radiant Reflections. So...
That was
But we're back. We've got our cameras fixed. We've got
Yes.
our actually, it was a switcher problem, but we got that fixed. So Haley's going to be very thankful because she's been downloading like 150 gig 4K 1022 files, 422 color profile. She was not you weren't very happy about that, I bet.
Now, were you doing it in 4K so she could punch in and out and stuff like that?
I always want to shoot in the highest res
Okay.
that I can just because.
So, is it less gigs when you do it from 3 cameras?
Well, the reason that it's less gigs is because the switcher sums all 3 cameras to record to the SD, and this is only a 1080 switcher. So even though our cameras right now are shooting in Netflix approved film, it will not. This gadget
switcher
does
dumbs
not.
it down.
I tried to. I would like to buy a 4K switcher, but that is not in the budget. Let's just say that.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what's a 4K switcher?
Depending on the size of it, it could be $8,000. Yeah.
And this one was like 350, right?
$350. Yeah, this is a super
huge jump.
But your difference between 1080 and 4K, I mean, think about what you're talking about.
Oh no.
1080 to 4,000.
Do you remember when 1080 was that's how you would market?
Yeah,
TV,
like,
TVs?
15 years ago, we were like, man,
this is amazing. You picked up the big screen at Best Buy. Or Circuit City.
Yes.
You know what?
Who remembers Circuit
I
City?
was just thinking about Circuit City the other
They're
day.
gone.
Radio Shack and Circuit City.
Our tech director was the manager of the local Radio Shack, Chad. See,
I don't know if I knew that about him.
Yeah, where the
It was
Taekwondo
right
studio is.
where your kids do
Taekwondo. Yeah.
I'm glad he's still in tech. That's good.
Oh, he's a beast. Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah. Oh, so Jared, for
one of
this
our
episode
traditions
that has a number that we can't remember. We drink coffee, and then we talk about coffee,
Love it.
and then
Good coffee.
Then we talk about other stuff.
This is very good.
So
I text Jared this morning, and I was like, because I didn't know whether to bring the Chemex or not, because I usually do just 2 cups. I'm like, Jared, are you a coffee drinker? He's like, yes, I'm a coffee drinker.
okay,
Absolutely.
speaking of Chemex, I almost took a picture and sent it to you.
Okay.
I was watching, this was, I don't know, a week ago or so. I was watching an episode of the show Friends, which again, I'm not advocating for the morality or like that.
My wife and my youngest daughter were watching that the other day.
People get upset at me.
It is trash.
There is a lot of stuff
I'm
that we would not condone.
Yeah, my youngest daughter's watching it, and I'm looking at Lisa. I'm like, I don't
condone this.
I don't think this is good. I don't think this is good.
So for me, and this is probably a terrible excuse. I'm gonna get blasted in the comments, right? Like a lot of it is nostalgic. Like as a teenager,
Oh, sure.
Like I loved me and my oldest sister Hope. Like we would watch Friends.
Sure.
We would just hang out and watch Friends. And like Matthew Perry just died.
He did.
Super sad. And Chandler was my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
He was a troubled person.
nostalgic. Yeah. Oh, I read his memoir.
Yeah.
He had
Addiction.
long history of addiction.
Yep. Sad.
Different stuff. But so we're watching this episode of Friends. It's the first episode. This is like 93, 94. And they're pouring coffee out of a Chemex.
Yeah, Chemex is very, very old.
See, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, no, Chemex was invented a long time ago. Like I think it was the 50s or 60s.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean Italian espresso has been around for a very long time. The first like pressure lever machine came out of Italy. Yeah.
I see. I didn't know that. I was like,
I thought
what?
Chemex was like the new hipster thing to do.
Oh,
You know,
no,
like,
it's
that's
old.
I thought it was third wave. Like this is like a new way we're doing coffee.
No, I would guess probably the methodologies of using the Chemex probably were kind of evolved through third wave coffee. But no, there's much more modern. I have a brewer coming from Ukraine that is a Hario V60 kind of like custom ceramic piece. So I have a friend who's a missionary. His wife, and George Markey's his name. His wife and I think he's got like 12 or 13 kids, bunches of them. They live in the Ukraine and they minister there. Very community oriented, super cool, not church based, like just family. Anyway, he has a local person there, believer, part of his little community that makes these they're aesthetically, it's just this beautiful piece, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, I got to have one of those. So
And this would be like instead of like a Chemex or a Clever Dripper or
exactly, or Kalita, any of those things. But it's a Hario V60 style brewer.
Which, like, I know
A cone brewer. It's a cone brewer, basically.
Yeah, that's what Sparrow uses, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah.
They do a
Sparrow uses a
V60.
V60 on a. Unfortunately, it's a pour steady. So the pour steady is a CNC controlled like robot pour over machine.
Yeah.
It's perfectly dialed. Like what you get is really delicious, but there's no love.
No.
Like, there's no love in that cup.
There's no art in this.
Your chair,
that's a
Josh,
real
we gotta
thing.
lift you up.
Oh,
You're
I'm a little short. So here's why.
Oh,
I
you did it on
lowered
purpose.
I lowered it so I get a little bit closer because I kept like smacking. Oh,
man.
So yeah, for those of you that thought maybe I shrank or something, there we go.
Yeah.
Because I was
There we
like,
go.
I keep smashing
Josh is
into
tall.
the desk. So yeah, I was the shortest guy on the episode there for a minute.
Well, the coffee we drink, Jared. So here's our tradition. So we drink really great coffee, and then we try to guess the tasting notes. Are you of this persuasion in coffee, or do you not care about coffee?
I mean,
that much?
I love coffee. The best cup of coffee I've ever had was in the airport in Ethiopia.
I bet
It was the best cup of coffee I've ever had.
We love us some Ethiopia.
That's
it
our
was
jam.
It was amazing. It was amazing. So I
Okay.
love coffee, but for me to taste something and try to, I don't know if I
So
can do that.
we're gonna try it. We're gonna try it. 'Cause, I mean, no
Where
pressure.
do you get coffee in Fort Wayne? Let's ask that question.
We order it.
Okay.
And
So you
things
order
like that.
online.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we're on a budget, we just get store bought coffee or things like that. But
But you've
sometimes
been to
I like.
Conjure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So if I go to like downtown, it's Utopian Coffee,
Yeah,
Conjure
Utopia's
Coffee. Sometimes United Coffee on the Southwest side.
Yeah.
Different things like that.
I just want to check though. When you say you get it from the store, like, does it come in a big blue can?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. We've had guests.
No, but we also
These are like Folgers people.
I think he was like the first guest we ever had. Wasn't LaBarba the first guest we ever
Josh
had on this?
Alaba, he was the first one that look.
I know his daughter, by the way.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I know his
So
daughter.
he's on here, gets the note, boom, like
And
immediately.
I'm the coffee dork, and I never get it right.
So
ever.
no, you have. You did that one time.
Once.
You did that one time. So I mean, there's a little bit of expectation here that you take a sip of that and you're like,
Yeah.
you know what?
Okay. So here we go. Let's see what we taste. Josh, we'll go left to right here. I cheated, so I'm not going to give any votes. I already saw this.
Gosh, I don't know.
And I'm just going to tell you guys, maybe this will help you. This is from Honduras. This is from Metric Coffee out of Chicago. I got this on my last flight. Just pulled it out of the freezer not too long ago. Cabanas Natural. It was elevation 1750 meters. And it is, I said natural process already. But Honduras.
We should just mispronounce all the words in here so that it sounds fancier.
Cabanas. Yeah.
Can I take another sip?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take as many as you need.
right.
Smell it, swirl it around, let it roll off the sides of your tongue.
Correct,
See,
Josh.
That's a real
good.
thing.
Okay. What do we think, Josh? 2 to 3 guesses is what we give everybody.
I'm going to say Honeycrisp apple.
Okay. And yes, it is that ridiculously precise.
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Okay.
and just honey.
Okay.
Just honey.
Okay. I was going to say a hint of blueberry
Okay. It's a solid guess.
with honey.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take it.
One more sip there, Jared.
Oh, man. Let's just put a hint of chocolate in that.
Chocolate. That's a good guess. Okay. So Honduras, natural process. It's obviously a light roast. Dried pineapple, which the grapefruit.
It's a little acidic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you both had berries. So strawberry.
Okay.
Strawberry.
I didn't have berry.
I thought you said a berry.
No,
Okay.
I said
you said
Honduras
blueberry.
apple.
Blueberry's always a really good guess with coffee, especially Ethiopian. And marmalade.
Oh, marmalade. Really?
Marmalade. This is metric. Okay, look away, gentlemen. Cool. Honduras Cabañas Natural from Metric. I will tell you, Metric is one of my favorite roasters in the country. Phenomenal. This little hole-in-the-wall place in Chicago. Whenever I have a flight out of Chicago, I will take extra time to get there to get some bags of coffee.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, Josh, I thought maybe what we would do jumping into this episode is at least unpack like 5 minutes or so for the listeners and viewers. The message yesterday, it was a panel style message with Pastor Josh, Pastor Pam, and Pastor Brandon.
Kind of a live podcast.
It was
we didn't
awesome.
We didn't do any better staying in time than you or I.
No, but we don't have time. So yeah. So first service, we had to cut a song. Like we're back in the green room, and we were like, it's 10:15, and we're supposed to close with 2, and one of them is a medley of like 2 songs. So we're like, we got to cut one. So we did. It worked out well.
Which, dude, like it was bonkers. So second service, because I'm like, hey, you know what? We had good stuff first service, but we gotta trim this down a little bit.
Truncate.
We were an hour and 3 minutes on stage.
Yeah.
First service. So like we're trying, like I
That's
felt
long
like, hey, we're
for
moving
us.
and grooving. I walk off the stage. My wife is timing us. We were front to back. Hour and 3 minutes, second service. I was like, come on. Like I was like, we were trying to like, oh no, hey, let's
It's
go
hard.
boop, 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 boop.
Yeah.
And
I felt like it was, you didn't say anything extemporaneous. It was good. It was good. It's hard when you have 3 people on stage. But, so Jared, for your benefit as well, the idea was, so we were closing up a series of messages called Everyday Disciple. And the idea is just like, what does an everyday disciple look like? What do they do? Like, how do they live? What are some of the markers of an everyday disciple, an actual follower of Jesus, not a church attender? And yesterday they closed up with basically 4 pillars. Okay, and these 4 pillars are comprised of 3 categories. So experiencing the presence of God, being spiritually formed, and then what we're going to talk about with you, well, you with us, I should say, is mission, being on mission.
Yeah, love it.
And so under the presence category, it was the need to begin by encountering God.
right.
So actually,
everything flows from that, right? We have to spend time in the presence of God, right? Outside of that, we're getting together and singing some fun songs and
hearing a good speech,
talking about a book.
Yep. And then the next part of that, and this is in the formation, the spiritual formation category, these next 2 pillars, experience community. So what does it look like to actually be in, and we talked about the different groups, you know, at Radiant, we've got life groups, we've got midweek classes, and we have D groups. And Pastor Pam, I felt like she oversees our groups and volunteers or change makers. Pastor Pam did a phenomenal job, I think, unpacking those ways to experience community and just how important it is. I mean, our staff is learning kind of below the surface. We're learning that spiritual formation is actually something that can only happen in community. We are spiritually formed in community, even though we have all these other practices of prayer, meditation, silence and solitude, fasting, scripture, worship. All of this will only be formed in our lives through community, through other people. The third pillar was also within that formation, it's to equip disciples. So how do we basically make one another capable to go out and share the gospel message of Jesus Christ in the world? And then that fourth area, which was just mission, like what does it mean to be on mission as an everyday disciple, was to engage the world. And that's where Josh and I, we text Jared like last week. Totally spontaneous. We were like, hey, would you ever want to be on the Radiant Reflections podcast with us? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, how about this Monday? Just stab in the dark. Let's try it.
Because originally, like when we were kicking this, you know, and we had met a while ago, you know, we sat down at Wings, and I knew we were going to be doing this conversation about the discipleship pathway. Initially, I thought we were going to do one per week. And
of the pillars.
So like, hey, I'm like,
wow.
hey. And in my brain, I'm like, the week where we talk about Engage the World, we bring Jared in.
Yes.
But then we
combined it
to try to like move into some different stuff for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, all right, hey, we're gonna hit all this at once, which is why we had an hour and 3-minute message yesterday.
It worked well.
I mean, it did.
Yeah.
It was really good. But so that's where JB and I were talking. It's like, all right, this is super last minute, which is my fault. Like, I wonder if he could be on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like this.
No, it worked out
Monday, and here he is. So.
Yeah. So Jared, you're with Destiny Rescue. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, church life. Just, maybe we'd love to get to know you a little bit. And then let's talk about engaging the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name obviously is Jared Ballenger, and I'm married to an awesome woman named Lauren. And then I have a son named Liam and a daughter named Wrigley. Mm-hmm. And
how old are they?
They're 7 is my son Liam, and then my daughter Wrigley is 5.
Okay.
So you like baseball or gum?
Yes.
Or both?
Yes, both.
Okay.
Both, and basketball, and a lot of Fortnite and Minecraft as well.
Fortnite, that's real.
So it's like
I got a 15-year-old on that kick.
Yeah. So it's a lot of those conversations and Pokemon cards. That's
sure.
All of that going on at our house right now. But I was raised in ministry, lived in different aspects of ministry, was a part of an organization that did school assemblies around the United States, and also have been a part of the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, worked there for almost 6 years. Left there, actually ended up working at the Christian radio station in Fort Wayne, Star 88.3 as their marketing director for a little while. And then Destiny Rescue was like, hey, we love your heart. We know that you love to preach. Would you want to talk and be able to talk about rescuing kids? And I had heard about Destiny Rescue. I'd heard about, obviously human trafficking. I think the world has now heard about that, right?
Yeah.
About what's going on in the world. But however, I've heard Destiny Rescue is an international organization, but their U.S. office is in Fort Wayne. And I was with, my dad is a Christian music artist who got to be on the Winter Jam Tour, and Destiny Rescue was on the Winter Jam Tour the same year.
Oh, wow.
So had met them. I was still working at the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, still went to the Star 88.3, and then started having conversations with Destiny Rescue about traveling, speaking, and about 5 months of conversations with them, and ended up being able to have the conversation about working for them. And they said, hey, why don't you become our director of church engagement? And so now I get to travel around. I get to build relationships with churches, staff members, worship pastors, teaching pastors, and just basically show the churches like, hey, this is how you can help rescue kids right from where you're at. Because it's not feasible for us all to go and jump on a plane right now.
Right.
And go kick in doors and go rescue kids. It's just not feasible for all of us. But what can we do about rescuing kids right from where we're at? And I just have a heart for kids. I would go to the ends of the earth as a father. Yeah. I would go to the ends of the earth for my children. Yeah. So when I go to churches, I say that exact line. I say, so why wouldn't we as the body of Christ go to the ends of the earth for God's children? Because there's at least 1 million children trapped. We know way more than that probably, but at least 1 million trapped in sexual exploitation. So what can the church do to rescue kids that they may never meet, but can give a kid a lifetime of freedom? Because children deserve to be free. Yes. And that's where my heart comes in it. My wife's heart is in it. And we support Destiny Rescue. We believe in it. We believe that when the church rises up, kids find freedom. Yeah. And that's how we love to equip churches and saying, right from where you're at, you can still help rescue kids around the world.
Jared, that's awesome. Do us a favor, because Josh and I are really familiar with Destiny Rescue. My family supports Destiny Rescue. We love it as a offering, a place to give an offering to see that happen. Talk about Destiny Rescue specifically, like the organization, what happens, just everything. Tell us exactly.
And a little origin story, maybe. How long have you guys been around?
Yeah. So Destiny Rescue, what we do is we rescue kids from sexual exploitation and human trafficking and help them stay free. That's very key part of that sentence, right, is helping them stay free. A little over 20 years ago, a man named Tony Kerwin from Australia was visiting Thailand. He overheard a conversation. It broke his heart. It was about trafficking, and it broke his heart. And so he started Destiny Rescue. And so Destiny Rescue has been rescuing. We started counting our rescues in 2011. And since 2011, we've rescued nearly 14,000 individuals. But that helped them stay free. Key part right there is we can't just rescue and say, all right, have a good life. Hope everything works out for you. There has to be aftercare, just like in any aspect, addiction issues, marital issues, any trauma thing. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in that. So in that aftercare, how do we help them stay free? It's called Freedom Plan. And so it's unique to each individual. So it's not the same for each one. But basically we're addressing things such as like a safe bed, because right now there's over 1 million kids that are going to bed at night to work instead of sleep. And that should break every person's heart. And so making sure that we address things such as a safe place. And then we obviously do trauma resilience training. Spiritual growth is a main part of what we do. We believe that true freedom comes through the power of Jesus Christ.
So you're sharing the gospel with the kids.
Through that freedom plan, there's gospel being shared. I got to sit in a morning devotion in Uganda and got to actually see kids. Actually, the one in Zimbabwe that I was sat in on, I got to see like 16 kids give their hearts to Jesus. Just, not long after being rescued. And then also in Uganda, got to see them be a part of it, singing worship songs. They sang this one song, it was beautiful. It was like, I know my God will make a way for me. He'll make a way and I will go through. And they sang that. And then they sang it in English, and then they sang it in their language. And it was just beautiful. And a lot of them had these toddlers holding onto their legs. And that toddler was a result out of their mom being abused. And their mom choosing
a customer's child.
A customer's child. And they're raising this child because they love that child. That's their baby. And so not only is the mom getting true freedom now and rescued, that baby was rescued. Didn't have to see their mom be abused anymore.
Maybe
and got
themselves.
To see, yes, exactly. And so it's not just the individual, but it's now changing the trajectory of that person's entire life, their children's lives, their children's children's life. It's a generational change that the rescue is taking place, and it's a beautiful thing to see in that. Because there's kids right now around the world that feel like this is their only hope and that they are going to have to live through this the rest of their lives. And so what our rescue agents are doing, what our teammates are doing in these different countries is they're going in and saying, you don't have to live like this. We can help you, especially in Africa, is a lot of the kids are selling themselves to feed their families. And so our rescue agents are able to go directly to them and say, you don't have to live like this. This is what we're able to offer you. And we show them the freedom plan and how it works. And they're also doing job training, vocational and educational needs. So basically they're learning how to be hairstylists, tailors. I got a shirt hanging in my car. I should have worn it today. I don't think I can fit in it, the greatest right now, but Thanksgiving time is crazy. So, but I have a shirt hanging in my closet that girls made, and they're learning how to make these clothing so that they can go and provide for themselves by making clothing, and they can go and work for an already that's established a business, or they can start their own right out of their home. And, sewing. And what's cool is when they're graduating these programs, the Freedom Plan, they're gifted with the supplies needed to start their own.
Wow.
So they're getting a sewing. We got to see it, girls graduate and got to see them gifted a sewing machine, and the whole table with the pedal and all of that, so that they can actually start raising their own money for themselves and their family and not feel the need to be trapped in sexual exploitation or human trafficking. And so basically with Destiny Rescue being around for over 20 years, we've rescued nearly 14,000. This year we're over 2,600 rescues, which is phenomenal. We're super stoked on that number. Something cool that happened this weekend was a Titans wide receiver
I saw this.
Nick Westbrook. So thankful for this. It was awesome. He chose Destiny Rescue as the My Cause, My Cleats. And so he wore Destiny Rescue cleats in the game yesterday. The Colts still won, but hey, you know, we're so thankful for his voice. And he wore those cleats and got to talk about it on social media. And so we have different advocates like that are talking about it and saying, hey, you know, this is how I'm choosing to rescue kids, and they're using their voice. And that's basically what I get to be a part of, is seeing churches use their voice, whether it's a church of 50 people or a church of 3,000, 4,000 people, saying you can still rescue a kid. You can rescue at least one, rescue two, rescue five, however many it takes. I was just in a church in Northern California a few months ago, and they were like, hey, we want to rescue a few kids. And they ended up, that weekend that I was there, bringing in over $22,000 to rescue kids, which rescued like 13 kids. I mean, I don't, my math doesn't work right now, but you know, like it's just crazy. So it's amazing to see what God will do with your yes. And being a part of the community, being a part of gathering together in the church and saying, hey, it's more than just sitting here listening to a sermon and worship. It's what happens Monday through Friday, or that Sunday through Sunday. I said in the church yesterday that I was speaking at, I said, you know, I look at Sunday as, obviously we gather together in community, but I look at it also as a celebration of the previous week. Okay, God, we're celebrating what you've done this week. Now we're also expecting what you're going to do the following week.
Getting equipped.
So it's exactly, it's Sunday is looked at from my point of view is it's a celebration and an expectation of what God is doing.
No, that's good.
So we continue to celebrate it, but we also expect more.
Yeah.
And we know that, but to expect more, we also have to be the hands and feet and actually make that happen. You know, like obviously we all know God can be like, all right, trafficking gone forever. But he's expecting his body to do something, to stand up and say, this is not okay. And take action and do something about it.
And there should be, I mean, something like trafficking should create in us. And now I know not everyone is going to have the same passions, you know, like there are different causes, different things that like you have a passion for. Awesome. Like we're not trying to say, oh, everyone should have this exact same passion, but there should be some level. I think Bill Hybels always referred to like this holy discontent. Like we shouldn't be okay just showing up to church every Sunday and like, oh yeah, this is cool. Well, around the globe, like atrocities like sexual exploitation of children is happening. And you know a host of other terrible things, right? But unfortunately, I think a lot of us aren't. We're just like, oh yep, I did the church thing. Like that was cool. Yeah, good talk, guys. See you next week.
Exactly.
And that's as far as it goes. Like that, we should be wrecked. With the things that are happening around us.
We often ask, right, when we heard the song Hosanna, it's like break our hearts for what breaks yours, right? And when we ask that, we mean it. We're like, God, break our hearts for what breaks yours. The issue is we get offended when he actually does it. We're offended that he actually broke our heart because we don't know what to do with the broken heart anymore. We're like, okay, well now you broke it, God, but what do I do about this issue? And so what I feel with Destiny Rescue or other organizations that have amazing things that are happening in their organizations is we're bringing that resource to the church and saying, now you've asked God what you can do, but now we're giving you the resource to actually go and do something about the issue. And if this is something you're passionate about, take it and run with it. You know, you can do it from wherever you're at.
I feel like too, even if this isn't an issue that you're passionate about, you need to be. In some capacity, some form, you need to be passionate about this because these are the most innocent and helpless of humanity, right? Just being exploited. Jared, could you do me another favor? Back up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk about, like, let's talk nitty gritty. Like, okay, Destiny Rescue receives donations from people like us. You take those funds. Those funds are used to do what? And what happens in these countries? I love the aftercare and the freedom plan you talked about. But go back to the actual, like,
what happens first?
What's first?
Absolutely. So let me go to where we work. So where we work is we are actively rescuing in 12 different countries. So we have 12 rescue countries, and we have 3 funding nations. So Destiny Rescue's funding nations, because it's an international organization, the funding nations are Destiny Rescue United States, Destiny Rescue Australia, and Child Rescue New Zealand.
Okay.
And so those are the 3 funding nations. So the fundraising, the awareness talk, all of that is happening in those nations. The 12 rescue nations there's a few undisclosed that I can't share, but we're in 6 different countries in Southeast Asia. We're in 3 different countries in Africa, and then we're in 3 different countries in Latin America.
Okay.
And so those are where we work. And so in Africa, we're in a lot of these places, we're partnering with other organizations that are like-minded, that want to see it end as well, that are able to offer resources that we might not be able to offer in those areas. So we don't want to go in an area and reinvent the wheel. We want to work with people to make sure, partner with people and making sure that this happens. So we partner with some churches in Africa that are making sure that their staff members are able to go into these areas and rescue these kids, and we're able to fund that happening. And we have Destiny Rescue employees there as well to make sure, project managers, different things like that.
That's actually, now that I think about it, that's how I learned about Destiny Rescue.
Really?
So my company, we go to pastors' conferences, we set up tables and whatever.
Yeah.
And Joe Mann.
Oh, yes.
Joe Mann had a table set up in Indianapolis at Horizon Fellowship.
Come on.
Bill Goodrich's church.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there, and I knew Joe as a pastor, a Calvary Chapel pastor in South Bend, because those are the churches I serve.
Yep.
And Joe and his wife were there. I was like, Joe, you're not pastoring in South Bend anymore. He said, no, I'm doing this. Joe was this big, like burly football dude, but very mild and soft-spoken. Sadly, he was actually serving with Destiny Rescue in a country. I don't know what country it was. Maybe we can't say that. And he contracted COVID in a country that he couldn't get the health care. He's not much older than me. He wasn't. And unfortunately lost his life.
Yep. And we're so grateful.
I knew about
it.
That's how I became aware. And I was like, wait a minute, what's up? And he had the banners and everything there. And I'm looking at him like, wait a minute. I knew it was a thing. But I didn't know it was.
Exactly.
I just did not understand the scope and scale of this travesty. And then when you start hearing about Super Bowl weekend in Atlanta, and then for our community, Coldwater, Michigan, which there's a hotbed of activity, I started recognizing the scope and scale. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't just sit by.
Yep. Exactly.
I got to do something.
Got to do something.
Yeah. So sorry.
No, you're good. No, I appreciate that.
But that actually that brings up an important point though, right? Because you have this awareness. You come into this awareness, and you have this holy discontent, as Hybels would say, right? Like, I have to do something. But the reality is, you probably can't just go find some country and start kicking down doors.
No.
Right? So sometimes we feel the weight of some of these things. We're like, we've got to do something. And but then we get frustrated because we're not sure what to actually do. So having organizations,
or we go and do something, and then we're like, "Oops, I shouldn't have done that." I messed up there.
I kicked in the wrong door.
Or that wasn't the best use of God's resources.
Exactly.
God's given me resources to steward. And, you can waste them with good intentions. Like you can waste them trying to make a difference when you're really not. So, so you're in the country, you're partnering with these 12 problem nations. To then what happens? So you've got agents, you said, or employees.
So we have rescue agents that are in these different countries,
like Joe.
Project managers. Yep. And so basically in Africa, going into the community on the street, it's called covert rescue, where we're on the street, we're interviewing the kids that are.
So you really are a spy.
Yeah, I've done the work. I've actually been on the street and got to be a part of the rescue in Africa. So I guess I got to be a part of that.
Though.
It was, it was more so just. You're sitting there going like, man, this is really happening in this community. This is really happening in this area. This is really happening, like you said, worldwide. Like this is everywhere.
Global. Yeah.
It's a global issue. And so being a part of that was insane. And I'd love to share more about that. But I want to talk with the rescue agents in some of our countries. What we do is in one of our countries, and I can talk about that one. It's called Nepal. In Nepal, we do border rescue, where we have 24 border stations with female rescue agents at these border stations, rescuing right on the border.
As
like going cross border
they're being trafficked to another country to be part of the industry. And they discern it, they see it. Okay.
And they're asking the right questions. They're asking they're separating if they need to, asking those questions and rescuing right on the border, which is phenomenal. And then you have areas like Cambodia, Philippines, Thailand those areas where you're doing more undercover work, building cases. So our rescue agents are going into the brothels. They're investigative, exchanging money, buying time, interviewing these girls. They think they're being bought for horrible acts, but what our agents are actually doing is building cases. Is this really happening to you?
I'm a safe person you can talk to.
Exactly. But having to build that trust, right? Of
course.
Like, you have to build
all they've known is abuse and yeah.
Exactly. So basically building that trust, building those cases, and then what they're able to do, because we have great relationships with the countries that we're in. And so we're working with
the governments, with the military,
with law enforcement. Yep.
Okay.
And so basically working with them to say, hey, this is happening. This is a case that we've built. This is happening at this location. And then we're able to do raids with them. They actually invite our agents to come in on the raids.
Kicking doors.
To make it happen, right? And we have amazing, just to let all the listeners know, all the viewers know, that we have amazing resources on our website, destinyrescue.org, that has videos of raids. It has a documentary called Operation Hoodwink, which is a phenomenal documentary. It's 30 minutes long. It shows building of a case and a raid, and shows like what happened to all the kids, things like that. It's just amazing to see, because a lot of people, when they think that, they're like, okay, so you're going in undercover, you're building a case.
Right.
So after I interview this girl, she just has to go back and live in that brothel until you build this case. And people don't understand that, but there has to be strategy to this, because
otherwise you blow it.
You blow it, and you can rescue one, or can I rescue 30? And hope to God that one is involved in the 30 rescued, right? And so there's strategy to it, but it's important that we follow the way that it's structured, because rescues are taking place. Like I said, 2,600 rescues this year already.
In 2023.
In 2023. Last year was 3,100 rescues. So God is moving in that work. So those are the kind of different types. So we have border rescue, which is the Nepal border. We have covert rescue, and we have raid rescue. Covert rescue is the undercover stuff, building the cases, but also undercover, like on the streets, happening in Africa. That's the covert rescue as well, going on the streets, interviewing the kids directly, making, this is happening to you. Okay, this is what we're able to offer you.
So you bring these children out, and then they get presented with a freedom plan, and they get the gospel shared with them, and then they go through this freedom plan, and then their life is new. Yeah,
their life is new. And
what about children? I mean, because I know that a lot of these aren't 18-year-old young men and women. These are like minors.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
They still need parenting. So, I mean, what is adoption? Placement in families?
Our best options, what we want to do is, obviously, if we can, and if it's a safe place, reacquaint them with family. If it's
Unless
a safe
the
place.
family was
if it's not a safe place, then we try to find other options.
Okay.
Which where it comes in, where we're partnering with other organizations that are like-minded, wanting to do great things.
Placing them.
So if we don't have a residential care facility in that area, we're partnering with an organization, finding out what we can do.
Take them someplace else.
If they have a safe place, then we're also doing community care, what we would call community care. So instead of residential care, they're still a part of the Freedom Plan, but they're able to live in a safe place with somebody that they know. There's one of the countries we partner, or that we're in, the organization that we partner with, the church there, has a bunch of foster families, and so seeing if that's an option. And so there's just different scenarios for each individual.
A lot of moving pieces.
Unique. Yeah, so it's unique to each individual. You're partnering with these different organizations, a lot of different organizations, because like I said, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and then we also don't have the resources that some of the other organizations might have. So what we can do is, like, this is what we're able to offer, and then this organization is able to offer this, and this offer this, and we can work together. And it's like that's kingdom work, coming together, people coming together with like-minded, follow Jesus. Let's give these kids Jesus, but also, hey, we're able to offer a safe bed. We're able to offer food. We're able to offer, and making sure.
Training.
And then what Destiny Rescue International is able to do is fund these things to happen because of Destiny Rescue USA, Destiny Rescue Australia, and Child Rescue New Zealand.
I just, as I'm listening to you talk, Jared, I'm really blown away by the intentionality. which is something that Pam talked about yesterday in the message. Just the intentionality and the structure that you described about how Destiny Rescue works, from the fundraising from those 3 countries to the employees, the operators in the 12 countries, to the freedom plan, to the partnership. I mean, placing kids in foster care and adoption is a whole other world in ministry. That's a whole other thing to be, So you guys have kind of sort of honed in and realized, like, our calling and our place is to get the kids out.
Yep. And a big thing is for a lot of people in the United States will be like, well, how can I adopt a kid? And it's like, that's not how we operate. What we want, we don't want to take these kids out of their culture. We want to keep them in their culture. That's where that's,
as long as they're safe.
As long as they're safe, we're not taking them out of their culture.
Yeah.
And so basically making sure that we can provide them with the freedom and helping them stay free, continually helping them stay free.
Yeah.
So with our rescue agents that are checking in on these kids after they even graduate the programs and different things like that, just to making sure, like, is there anything that we can help you with? Because we want to make sure that you stay free. Like, that's our vision and mission statement, right? We rescue kids from human trafficking and sexual exploitation and help them stay free, because that is the most important part. Like I said earlier, we can't just rescue and say, all right, have a great life. There has to be that aftercare piece.
Are there any, and just say no if you can't tell us, are there any Destiny Rescue things happening here stateside?
Just fundraising and awareness.
Okay. So not actual work with getting kids out of the sex trade here in the States.
No rescues taking place with us. We get tips, like, of things happening, and we immediately give that to we give that information to Homeland Security and the FBI.
And tell me why that is. Is it just there's more numbers of it happening in Cambodia and Thailand and these places than the state? Or
so a lot of people will be like, well, why aren't you rescuing in the States? Why aren't you rescuing in the States?
I'm just curious.
No, that's great. I appreciate you asking that question, because our founder is from Australia, and he's always said, I feel called to the most vulnerable countries that don't have resources.
And we have more than we could ever want
or
need.
So I would say right there is we go to the countries that we feel called to that don't have resources, and they're vulnerable. And they're good countries, they beautiful. I mean, some of these places are the most beautiful places in the world.
Oh yeah.
And they're just they need help in certain areas that we're able to offer those resources to.
No, and that's I don't want to say pushback, but I mean, back in 2017, we initiated. Well, we didn't initiate. We partnered with World Hope International for a partnership in a village. It's like, hey, how do we help with infrastructure? How do we help kind of overcome poverty in this location? And people are like, well, yeah, but there are people in poverty here. It's like
poverty's not the same.
It's not the same.
There are people that live in poverty here. There are people that are starving in the United States.
In Sturgis, Michigan.
A significant difference is, like, we have, albeit imperfect, we have quite a few safety nets. Like, I mean, we have food pantries, we have food stamps,
rescue missions.
We have a variety of safety nets in place. A lot of these other countries, you don't have food, you die. I mean, like, there aren't safety nets. I mean, so I imagine,
absolutely,
like, when it comes to trafficking,
and that's the thing is, it's like going to vulnerable countries that don't have the resources. So that's why we're working in the 12 that we're working in now. And if God opens more doors, obviously, I think our team would be happy to hear how we can get into more.
Of course.
But those are the 12 that we're in, and it's like, hey, let's go to those countries, because we feel like they right now need the resources that we're able to offer. And we're partnering, like I said, with other organizations that are there in those areas, churches, whatever it may be, to just make sure that we don't let anything slip through the cracks, and just trying to continue that work and making sure that rescues are still possible.
Well, and not to get too political, but I'm sure that those 12 countries, the reason that those have been targeted is because you have the most reciprocation with local organizations, right? You're going to have some countries that they're going to tell Destiny Rescue to kick rocks. We don't care. We don't care about the kid. We don't care about what's happening to these children in our country. And they're not going to partner with you to do what's necessary. So those 12 countries, I'm sure, are strategic, because they're like, we
need help.
We want what you just said to happen in our country, because this is a darkness and a wickedness unspeakable. We want this. So some of that has to do with, like, a whole other world, like the drug trade. It's a joke.
Yeah.
We can stop it today. You could stop the drug trade today if you wanted to. You know, they don't want to stop the drug trade because there's unspeakable amounts of cash flow into the American economy from the drug trade, from the illegal drug trade. We could stop it right now.
Yeah.
It'd be easy. Yeah. And I don't know how much of that spills over into this human trafficking.
And I don't know either. Yeah. I think I do know that human trafficking, I should have said this at the beginning when talking about the history of Destiny Rescue, but human trafficking and sexual exploitation is the fastest growing illegal enterprise in the world. $99 billion a year is spent on the commercial sex trade, which is $11 million an hour.
Goodness.
$11 million an hour. And that's more than 60% of 150 billion, which is human trafficking total. Like any age, child marriages, labor, trafficking, all of that, 150 billion combined.
That leads to a question. I mean, so not all human trafficking is sexual exploitation.
That's correct. Yeah.
Does Destiny Rescue? Are you?
We've rescued out of other aspects of trafficking.
Primarily the sexual exploitation.
Yeah, primary is sexual exploitation.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, the clothing industry is a huge thing. Manufacturing.
Yep.
In other
Children's
countries.
soldiers is another thing. Child marriages is a big thing around the world. It's crazy.
I upset my daughter. Well, I shouldn't call her out, but she's all like, you know, she's getting where she's like, she's got her own fashion choices, and she's like, Dad, we got to order this off like Temu or whatever. You're like Shein. I said, hey, here, let's look at this resource that talks about like the child labor that's involved for you to be able to buy a shirt for $2.
Yeah, there's a reason.
There's a reason you can buy a shirt for $2.
Yes,
and having those conversations because
somebody's working for a nickel an hour.
Yeah,
if that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it's like, we grab out of these things and we're largely ignorant of
exactly.
the
and
things that are in place.
In a lot of these countries, in Africa, like when I got to go last year and visit a couple projects, I got to go to Zimbabwe and then also Uganda. And as I'm sitting there in one of the girls' homes in Uganda, and she's telling the story of how she got into this, and it was a story of just hopelessness, you know, like I had no other hope. Somebody told me that I could do this.
It's a job.
Sell myself to feed my family once every few days. And sitting there, hearing her say 5, 6, 7 times a night, maybe making $1.50 US dollars in that one night, which is just like mind-blowing, mind-boggling. So it's just... when you hear that, you hear the hopelessness in it. You hear that there is no other hope. There is no other jobs. Even if there was, it would be less than what they're making if they weren't to do that. And so offering them, once they're stepped into freedom and saying, if this is what you want, we have a freedom plan where you can learn how to be a hairstylist. You can learn how to be a tailor. You can learn how to make floor polish and soap and dish soap and different things like that, and learn how to sell clothing items and like just different things like that, to where they can literally, we went and visited a market on the street, and a girl that had been rescued literally had a blanket out on the ground and t-shirts that she was selling for her income. And she was so thankful that that's what she could do to provide for her family.
An honest living.
It's an honest living that she's not having to be abused for.
Yeah. So, Jared, if we were to kind of turn the corner, we're getting to the end of the podcast. Josh and I would love for you to talk about if there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for Destiny Rescue, and for you, Jared, in this podcast, what would you hope our listeners and viewers would do in response to hearing what you've shared with us? What would you want?
Yeah. So let me first start about saying, you know, what is the church's calling? Like, what are we called to do? What did Jesus ask us to do in the Bible? And obviously to go and make disciples of every living creature, like, you know, preach the gospel to every living person, right? And I always ask, and lately kind of my sermon's been wrapped around, what is the King's criteria? And I call the sermon the King's criteria. And what does the church need to do? What is the church called to do? And I always say, we're called to live out the gospel. I call out Matthew 25. I call out the Good Samaritan story, right? Of, you know, in the Good Samaritan story, it should have been the end after the priest walked by.
Right.
Then it should have been the end after the Levite walked by.
Wow.
Because those are the two that actively profess with how they act their faith.
Mm-hmm.
They actively profess their faith.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the Good Samaritan. It was the third person that came by, and it was a Good Samaritan who does not actively profess their faith, that had compassion on the person. And that shows me in that story that we can say we believe, we can say we love God, we can say all these things, but if we do not have love for the person that needs it the most, then we truly don't love God. Wow. I'm not saying empty your bank accounts. I'm not saying make ridiculous, not right decisions to help people. What I'm saying is, what can we do? That Good Samaritan gave of himself in costly ways to help that individual.
It was sacrificial.
It was very much so. He spent the night, he bandaged his wounds, spent the night, then he gave 2 denarii, which when you read on what 2 denarii.
We just taught about this exact parable in this series.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So like 2 months of a stay at an inn.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know about you. I can't, if you wanted to stay at a hotel for 60 days and said, hey, Jared, can you foot the bill? I'll be like, bro, I ain't got that money. That's insane.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
So in today, that would have been like, thousands.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
And so he gave of himself. And then what he said at the end was, he said, and when this runs out, I'll be back with more.
Yeah.
Giving more of himself in costly ways. And when I was in Africa, I don't mean to make this long, I just want to share this part. When I was in Africa, all the time, the rescue agents, the kids were all saying thank you to me and my teammates that were from America. And I struggled, to be honest with you, I struggled with that because when I was there, I was like, man, like, y'all are the one doing the work. Like, y'all are and they're like, no, seriously, like, thank you for what you do in the United States. Because they know that the funding comes from Australia, the United States, and New Zealand. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're welcome. And so I brought that back to the staff meeting. My first staff meeting, I shared, and obviously with tears running down my face, sharing all the stories that I had. And then I said, but they kept saying thank you. And I'm just going to be honest with you, I really struggle with that. And then our United States CEO, Kirk, he goes, Jared, I want to bring you back to the Good Samaritan story. And he shared about how the part that we play, and I believe that the American church can play, is the part of the Good Samaritan story that maybe not the one that bandages the wounds, but the one that gives of themselves in costly ways by saying, I might not be able to be there to bandage the wounds, but what I can do is I can give this to help. And when this runs out, I can be back with more. And that's what the rescue partner thing is.
Right.
You know, monthly, you're saying, hey, when this runs out next month, I'm going to foot that bill again. And here's more. And becoming a rescue partner, you're helping rescue a different kid every single month. Because that's going into the rescue pool, basically, right? And they're pulling out 1,500 here, 1,500 there to rescue these kids, to watch them walk into freedom. And so, what does the church play? How do we help? What can we do? Is we just live out the gospel. We clothe the naked. We feed the hungry. We give drink to those free. We set them free. It says in Psalm 82, to give justice to the poor and the orphan, uphold the rights of the of the destitute. Like give them, you deliver them from the grasp of evil people. It says in that. And we know that human trafficking is an evil that lives in this world, ran by evil people, and we're called to deliver them from evil people. And so delivering these children, if you had to ask Jesus to write out a list of what was most important to him, he wouldn't do it, but he would say, I'm pretty sure I would say that children would be very high on that list.
Oh, he said, if you don't let these children come to me, you're bad shape.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at the world as through the eyes of these children, and so what part does the church play? I believe we play the gospel. Paul said, if I live my life as if I didn't do good acts, it's not that the good deeds are the root of our salvation, but they are the fruit of it. The helping people, loving people, treating people well is the fruit of our salvation.
Agreed.
And so living that out, living in such a way that people see Jesus on the inside of us. What can you do? What can you sacrifice to help the hungry person on the street, the homeless person, whatever it may be? what can you do to help rescue a kid? And so we're one of the many organizations in the world that are just trying to help people. But with Destiny Rescue, our focus is we rescue kids from human trafficking and sexual exploitation. We have the numbers to prove that rescues are taking place. They're happening. You get updates through the email, right?
And, and the Facebook page. I follow you guys on Facebook. That's a really good thing to have in your feed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you have a heart for this, if you have a passion for this to say, hey, I want to help rescue kids. I want to be a part of rescuing kids. All you have to do is go to destinyrescue.org, and there's ways that you can give. You can become a rescue partner like Josh. You can give a one-time donation. It does take $1,500 to rescue one child.
$1,500.
Yep, $1,500 to rescue.
$1,500, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a huge sum of money.
And so basically what I love doing is what we call Rescue Sundays, where a church highlights the issue of trafficking one Sunday a year, and they call it a Rescue Sunday with Bring In Destiny Rescue. It doesn't cost anything to the church. And we get to come in, preach a message on justice and freedom and hope and how God wants his children free. And then also a call to action at the end where it's not coming necessarily from the church, but it's to the people saying, what are you going to do today to rescue a child? And you get to hear how the rescue's taking place. You hear stories, you see stories online, you hear about how you can watch these videos. There's a video that I would love for you to go on YouTube and type in Red Shoes. It's a Destiny Rescue video, and it's a powerful few minute clip. And it shows you why we're doing what we're doing.
So really brass tacks, Jared, for listeners, viewers would be maybe you're watching and listening and Radiant Life isn't your home church, but you're a part of another home church. Go talk to your pastor. Go talk to the board. Go talk to the elders of your church about having Jared come to your church for one of these Rescue Sundays. Talk to them about that possibility. I'm going to put a challenge out there to listeners and viewers. Go to destinyrescue.org as soon as you're done watching this podcast and give some money. Just give some money. You know, and I know we've all heard these things before. We've all heard this idea of we spend the $6 and $7 at Starbucks for our coffee. You know how Josh and I feel about Starbucks? That's not good coffee. That's trash anyways. So, but a month, what would it look like for you to say for the next month, I'm going to make coffee at home, and the difference in my budget between going to Starbucks and making my coffee at home, which is going to be better coffee anyways, I am going to just sacrificially give this little bit of my coffee money. Think about those words.
How first world problem is that? I got to give up my $8 latte?
Right. And I'm just being facetious.
And we're not. No. We appreciate coffee, right? We're not saying you shouldn't ever buy coffee. But we've talked about simplicity.
Spiritual discipline.
We probably waste more time, energy, and money on things that don't actually matter than most of us realize. And if we sit back and take inventory to say, all right, hey, are there things in my life that I can simplify? Because I'm sure Destiny Rescue would appreciate hey, everyone over this next month, you're going to just go give money. But how cool though, if you can become a regular, monthly. Every month, this becomes part of your family's budget.
Yes.
And if you have kids at home, you sit and you talk with your kids. Hey kids, we can't go, grab Starbucks quite as often because here's what we're choosing to do with our resources. And here's why, because this is the reality for kids around the world. And we don't have any idea, right? Because we're sitting pretty comfy.
And what I love about the Christmas time right now is, obviously giving my kids a great Christmas this year is awesome, right? But also sitting to your kids down and saying, would you like to give a kid your age freedom this year? And if you would, let's start giving to Destiny Rescue. Let's start actively saying we're going to help rescue a kid every single month. Or maybe it is that lump sum right now is saying, hey kids, we're going to only do 3 gifts each this year. And then we're going to take the extra and make that $1,500, and we're going to rescue one child this Christmas season. And that's not only showing your kids what it's like to live out the gospel, but that's also showing your kids that they just gave the gift of freedom to a kid for Christmas.
So good.
Which is the gift we all were given, right? On Christmas night was the gift of Jesus, which is the true freedom is through the power of Jesus, right? And so why not, let's look at what can we do to rescue a child and give them the gift of freedom, that they can live the rest of their childhood free, the rest of their life free. Because you're looking at, I mean, when you said earlier, like, these are children. Like, yeah, we rescue 17, 18, 19-year-olds, like whatever, but like we're rescuing 10-year-olds and 9-year-olds, and we've rescued a 2-year-old before. And I mean, this is the reality of it, and saying, we can give these children the gift of freedom this Christmas season.
And I don't want to be a jerk, but let's put that in the scales here. Like, new Xbox for Timmy, free a 2-year-old from sexual exploitation. I mean, like, seriously, like,
not comparable.
No, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But I see it, Josh. Yeah. No, I think that's a powerful exhortation. Listeners, viewers, we are explicitly trying to pull on your heartstrings right now. That's what I'm doing. I am telling you, is there a way that you can just look at what you're doing with the astounding mountain abundant blessing that God's put into your life, and begin to make a commitment, maybe a monthly commitment to Destiny Rescue towards this mission, because it's a really important one. We're going to, at the end of this podcast, we're going to put up a sort of a response screen. We'll say, Haley, we'll have our producer put up a screen. We'll put up a picture of Jared here, his contact information, his mobile, his phone number, his email. If you've got more questions about the ministry, how you can participate. And definitely DestinyRescue.org.
Yeah, we'll link.
Without a doubt.
Rescue's website. So a lot of outreach things, right? Like as a church, as Radiant Life, we fund various outreach things. This is one where I will say, and we will be, on an ongoing basis, be contributing to Destiny Rescue. But this is one where I would actually say I would prefer that you go direct. Because then you're going to have the opportunity to get the updates from Destiny Rescue and Jared. So in this particular case, I mean, you can contribute to the church missions fund, whatever. I would prefer that for this particular organization, you go direct to Destiny Rescue. You're going to get the updates. You're going to be able to see just the different things that they're doing, and hopefully it becomes a more personal thing. It's not just this detached. Oh yeah, like this group they're working on freeing kids. No, we are working on
this is who we are.
Kids. This is who we are. We are people as followers of Jesus who pursue freedom for those that are in bondage.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, Jared, thanks so much.
Man,
you drove an hour to come up here and spend your morning with us and just kind of talk about how to engage community, engage the world. Listeners, viewers, definitely get on DestinyRescue.org. Take the next steps. Josh, we will be back next Monday.
We will.
With the first conversation around the Lament and Peace series.
Which I think that's going to be a really good. I mean, it's only a 2-weeker, but I think that's going to be a really good series.
Yeah, we got a series coming into Christmas. We're pretty excited.
We're just talking about human trafficking. That is source for lament. So,
yeah, and I mean, we didn't really even get into this, and it's terrible. I can't even remember the name of the film.
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, Sound of Freedom. I mean, if I'm going to go ahead and say this to you, and I've said this to a number of people, if you haven't seen that video, you need to watch that, because that will take the skin and bones of the story that Jared was telling us throughout this podcast, and it'll be in a dramatic, but a very real, way of seeing like the reality of this travesty. I know my wife and I, when we sat down and we watched that movie,
it's the realness of it. It shows you this is actually happening around the world, and it raised the right awareness for sure. Churches were like, we want to do something, and which was awesome for us to get churches on board with Destiny Rescue. Just from seeing that, it was a great film about the issue of trafficking, and just kind of brought it into that, like I just said, the realness of it. Like, this is happening. It shows the world, and that's great for awareness. Awareness is a great thing, right?
It's only one part,
but it's only one part. At some point, awareness is not
without
enough.
Action
is nothing.
That's just depressing.
But that movie, I know for my wife and I, we went away from that movie and we just said, I know this isn't right English. We can't not. We cannot go away from seeing what we have seen and not make changes in our home, in our funding, in our money. We can't. Yeah. I'm not the same. I watched this thing. I saw what was happening. I recognize it's based on facts. I'm changed from what I saw. I have to take action. There's no other choice. I went away from that saying to myself, and my wife did too. My wife, she's of the persuasion all of our charitable giving should only go to Destiny Rescue. She's like, the church is this really extravagant, beautiful place. We've had these conversations before, in an affluent,
I get it,
and it's like, then it's to me, there's sort of an Xbox versus, there's a question that we know that we need the local church to be funded as well because it informs people to share the gospel.
Amen. Yeah.
I mean,
that's good.
But get out there, destinyrescue.org. Jared, again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, shameless plug is the 30-minute documentary called Operation Hoodwink. You look that on the website.
We'll link
is that YouTube?
It might not be on YouTube, but I can get you the link directly to it.
Okay.
Haley, can we do like a little box?
We can
at the end screen thing.
Yeah, so we'll do that, and then because that one right there, shameless plug for that. It's 30 minutes long, so it's not even the full length of a movie, but that shows you the building of a case, undercover
and it's
footage,
documentary style, not film.
It's not. Yeah, it's 100% documentary style, but it shows you the raid. I mean, it shows it's the realness of it. So it's not Hollywood actors. It's not anything like that. There's no dramatization. It is 100% a building of a case and a rescue taking place and kids being rescued and free and watching the pimp be arrested and all of that. So
Haley's going to link that.
Yeah, the realness of it.
Here.
Yeah, like here.
We're quite a ways in. Josh, I'm feeling led. Like we just need to pray for Jared and pray for Destiny Rescue. There's a spiritual component to this whole thing. We know Radiant Reflections listeners, viewers, there's powers and principalities, and there's darkness that is holding this thing up, this industry to be what it is, and that's definitely a place to do. Don't pray, but don't just pray. Do something else. So maybe Josh, I don't think I can, but can you pray?
Sure. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to sit with Jared to just hear his heart and Destiny Rescue's heart for freeing kids that are in captivity. Father, you tell us in Scripture that our battle is primarily against the spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. So, Lord, we pray against all of that. Lord, unfortunately, those spiritual forces utilize a human component. So, Lord, there are guys that need to go to jail.
Yes.
And, Lord, we just pray that you would continue to help Destiny Rescue find favor. Lord, if there are other countries that they need to expand into, Lord, just pave the way for that. Lord, for every agent, Lord, whether it's at a border, whether it's on the streets, whether it's going into these brothels, Lord, I pray for your hand of protection on them, Lord, but also that you would just give them supernatural discernment, that they would make the right connections, they would ask the right questions, Lord, and that you would put them in the position to free as many children as possible. Lord, I pray that you would just help Jared find favor, Lord, as he goes to other churches. Lord, I pray that you would stir, not just JB and I talking here, Lord, but that you would stir in the hearts of our viewers and listeners,
yes, Lord.
Lord, and that they would be roused to action, Lord, that they would step into this, and this would be something that would just expand your kingdom through really, really practical ways. Lord, just thank you again for this opportunity. We pray for these kids in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you.